This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
Owners of small businesses who are thinking of digital ad campaigns perhaps ought to first check with the experts. That's what John Chan does, helping businesses market via platforms like YouTube and Meta. Mr. Chan joins us for this Bizgnus interview to explain how to avoid some of the pitfalls in digital campaigns. Now, when it comes to marketing, more and more people are turning away from legacy places like newspapers, TV stations, etc., and going with digital. How hard is that for the average small business to make that transition from your experience?
I think it depends on the relative comfort for people in understanding digital tools and just their familiarity with the web. As with anything, before you get into the technical bits of marketing, a lot of it really comes down to, them as consumers. A lot of people that are marketing professionals come from a background of just being digitally native in terms of digital products. They're comfortable using technology. They have a smartphone. They have a sense of what it feels like to browse the web as consumers on various digital products. And so when you think about the digital aspect of the advertising experience, you experience it as a consumer first. And I think that transition leads to a certain amount of comfort with that. And then once they come from a sense of, I get this conceptually as a consumer, then you see the real benefits of comparing traditional marketing methods versus a digital one, where a lot of things are much easier to track and you have a lot of math that can go behind some of these campaigns that you're trying to build out. But that's where it starts. It starts off as the consumer's experience that you have.
The famous algorithms, I guess. And when you talk about the famous algorithms, you're talking essentially about two companies, Meta and Google, or Alphabet as its parent company is called. They have sucked up virtually all the advertising dollars, haven't they?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of part of it is that's where a lot of the attention has gone, right? And there's also new products and new tools effectively that have shown up in the last couple of years. But they do tend to consolidate in these two large companies, which is primarily search experiences. If you spend a lot of time on Google and you know what that experience is like, and then it bleeds into YouTube, progressively more nowadays. And on Meta side, a lot of it is Facebook and Instagram, where a lot of the advertising dollars go, because that's where a lot of the attention goes.
So it's pretty much attention, I gather.
100%.
What do you advise your small business customers who may not have a big marketing department that they can tap? How much do you guys do for them?
Yeah, I think the first thing that any marketing campaign starts with is understanding that fundamentally marketing is sales at scale. And so if you think about what informs a great marketing campaign, is to understand the in-person experience that you might have. So if you go to a networking event and you have the luxury to talk to somebody for 5 or 10 minutes, and are you able to convince them and have an understanding of what your product service does, who your target audiences are, and so that if the right person, the right prospect is in front of you, can you convince them from 0 to 60 of why they should transact with you? If you can't do that in person or on a one-to-one level, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that on a much broader scale advertising campaign.
That's where you guys come in, though, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of it really comes down to us uncovering the same things. What kind of people have you talked to in the past who seem to have bought your products or services in the past? And so as you uncover the qualitative aspect of the transaction and you unfold it and unpack the nuances of it, it makes the guesswork of what kind of campaigns do you run, or what kind of storytelling do you have in your advertising creatives. That becomes sort of the starting point, and then you get into the numbers. Is this a sustainable campaign to run? What are your margin profiles? What is the unit economics that makes this campaign a successful one, so that if we were to measure and see that within an ad campaign within Google or in Meta, do we know if this is directionally correct, and do we feel comfortable to invest more or not?
When it comes to tracking whether the advertising works, certainly digital has it all over traditional media, correct?
It absolutely, although it has progressively gotten harder over the last couple of years, and I think in a certain sense, correctly so, because there are some, I guess in the last 10 years, we've seen some invasive practices coming from these companies that makes it very, I guess, for consumers a little bit scary. I think it is an interesting sentiment, because when companies make it too easy to track, it's not always a good thing.
Boy, when you say scary, that sends shivers up your spine, doesn't it?
I don't know if that's necessarily the right word, so I was hesitating a little bit about using that. But I think for people that don't understand it, it could be, and I think that's kind of where the sentiment comes from. And again, if you see the ease that advertisers had for a while, I think some of the stringent protection measures that are put in place are in general better for consumers, and I do think that's actually a good thing.
Now, let me take a bit of a jump here to my favorite subject these days, and that's artificial intelligence. I figure artificial intelligence will certainly help me since I don't have much of the regular kind.
You're being gracious. No, I mean, a lot of it really comes down to recognizing that it's a tool that is available at your disposal. And for people that understand the power of the internet 20 years ago, we're about to see a plethora of innovation and change for people that adopt the new technology versus the ones that don't. And so it is a very important trend. But it's not some sort of fad that would come and go. It is something that's very important to pay attention to nowadays.
Do you think there might come a point where there is a reaction against AI from the general public?
I think it's one of those things where, again, it comes down to the fear of the unknown. And so, if I asked 20 years ago, do people have a sense of fear around the internet? I'm sure there were some hesitations, coming out from different corners. Some of it might be warranted because, again, we are entering an unprecedented sort of scenario where we don't have a history of what is expected to look at, to study, and to understand what it means to our daily lives. And so in the short term, a lot of really good things are coming out, but there may be longer term implications that I can't really speak to. But I think it does speak to some people's fears around, is that something that we have to worry about if it's too convenient? Is it preventing a lot of our abilities to think independently? Because now that we have AI, do we defer too much of our thinking towards that? So you're joking about it, but it might be a broader issues if it becomes too easy for people to ask questions where they lose independent thoughts.
Well, that will certainly be an interesting time for third grade teachers.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And you see that with education where there's a lot of concerns around cheating or plagiarism or what have you, right?
Let's tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about your company. How did you get it started, and why?
Yeah, the genesis of YouTu8be started as a way. So I guess throughout my career, I've always looked at the next incremental problem within my own sort of technical skills or my own sort of progression. So I started off as a designer, and then I got into software development. And at the time, this is 2016 or so, my wife and I were running a software company, and we had great traction, but not a lot of commercialization. We couldn't make the business work, and so we thought that we had a skill gap in marketing. And so consulting was a really good way for us to sample and test our skills across multiple domains and a lot of different businesses for us to reverse engineer the formula to success, if you will. And so that's kind of how it started. And we're about 8 or 9 years in now into the agency business, and we've been doing fantastically well for ourselves and for some of the brand clients that we work with. So very fortunate to have that position.
British Columbia must be a good place to start a business.
I mean, there's advantages in being a Canadian company in that we work with a lot of U.S. clients, but we live here, right? And so, but in today's age, you're coming in California interviewing me, a lot of our staff is all over the world. We have staff from the Philippines, we have staff from Pakistan, we have staff in Canada, we have staff in Kenya. It's, geography is one barrier that is no longer the case the way it used to be.
You have certainly flattened the world and compressed it a bit.
Just a little bit.
Where can people get more information? I presume you have a website.
I do have a website. Yes, you can find us at 2x.agency. That's the URL. So if you search for 2x Growth Agency, you'll likely find us online.
And what would you like to add? And it could be any topic. And you're saying, why doesn't he ask me that question?
Well, I think no, I liked your questions, and so I don't think I have anything like that per se. I think most companies and businesses that we tend to work with, I think there's a common misconception that or there's a thing that I would like more people to know is that business is a team sport. And so when you recognize that you're choosing team players and recognizing and evaluating it as such, it really helps you to see the importance of having respective experts within the respective fields. And it goes both ways. And where we want to work with partner companies that have a lot of deep domain expertise in their respective fields. And that's where they will find a lot of value in us.
You've been listening to the Bizgnus Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@bizgnus.com. That's BIZGNUS.com. Thanks for listening.